It's scary to be a writer in these times. The writer becomes a writer not when he thinks of the story, but when he becomes aware of his self and his place in the world. To seek purpose in everything as opposed to seek an experience in everything. Thankfully, I feel like I'm a bit of a nerd now, because imagine living your entire life and not ever feeling like a nerd. Modern living stops you from being bored and stops you from thinking. Parents news देखते हैं और बच्चे memes देखते हैं. You know, वो कुछ है ही नहीं. वो बीच का जो एक normal है, जो parents भी देख रहे हैं और बच्चे भी देख रहे हैं, वो नहीं है.
Dhruv Sehgal is arguably one of the best writers we have in the modern content space in India. And he's someone also supremely interesting and interested in a lot of things that kind of show in all the stuff he writes. Going to talk about all of that and really understanding his process so you can use it in your own life. But before we go there, make sure you hit subscribe and smash that bell icon. Welcome to the show, Dhruv.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
They suddenly go into podcast voice and like suddenly go slower and calmer and
Even I was trying to pitch myself.
This is the first time. It's the first time we're meeting in person.
Yeah.
We've done a podcast before.
Yeah.
We also had random conversations about coffee for a while.
Yeah.
I would actually give you credit for getting me deeper into like different kind of coffee grinds and different kinds of roasters. It was
How
you
long-
got me down that rabbit hole. I'm still down that rabbit hole.
Oh, you are?
Yeah, I'm still down that.
No,
rabbit
that's
hole.
nice. People tend to take a whatever U-turn or they like.
At some point, I realized there's too much coffee equipment at home, and it was like, why do I have all of this? But you can't. I don't think there's anything called too much coffee equipment at home.
There isn't, but one should always have a French press because it's the simplest, easiest, and you always get great coffees if you do a couple of basics right.
That's true.
So yeah.
I'll start off by asking you something. You think when you think about the time when you first wanted to express yourself creatively, could be writing, could be acting, could be anything else. What was that time? When did that start for you?
I mean, I don't think there was a desire to express. There was a desire to understand. And that turned into a desire to express. But that is where, that was not that was not because I was doing something. That was because there was a requirement to express yourself, so you had to. But the bigger thing was trying to understand yourself, And I don't think a lot of people did it at that time when I was doing it. And in fact, I was just reading a book. It's called Here and Hereafter. It's about, it's on Nirmal Verma. He's this amazing Hindi writer. And he was one of the Nai Hindi Kahaniya movement writers who are basically not just trying to tell you stories about the society, but they were questioning the idea of self in the world, And this is back in the 70s, 80s. And he went to Prague. He was there in the Oriental Institute of Prague. So yeah, I mean, one of the best writers. So in his in this book on him, the question was, when does a writer become a writer? Is it when he writes down his first story? And the person who wrote this book, Vineet Gill, he quoted someone else called, I think, Amit Chaudhary, and he said that the writer becomes a writer not when he thinks of the story, but when he becomes aware of his self and his place in the world. So a writer is born in a form in his imagination, not in action. So this, I mean, to answer your question, this idea of when did I have the desire to express myself, or rather when did I try to understand myself, or when did I start understanding myself, is probably when I was in the UK and I was in school there, and there you had to take public transport to go to school. And some days you wouldn't take it because you're done with school and you would just like to walk. So when I started going for long walks, and the weather enables you to kind of go deeper, you're listening to your music, it's always drizzling, it's grey skies, and you'll enter the home and the heating the coziness or the heating of the last night would still be present in some form, So it's like you're entering different worlds. You're part of the nature because it's so green also there, there are parks. You're part of society that is being built. You're part of history because there are these old churches everywhere. You're part of this so-called house that your parents have given it to you very lovingly. And in all this, you're always trying to find, where do you belong? And it wasn't a very active pursuit that who am I? But in hindsight, I remember it was all of this. because it never felt boring, it never felt lonely, it never felt scary, and it never felt like a burden. It felt weirdly meditative. Like if you would have asked me, would you like to walk for another 20 minutes or 30 minutes, I would say yes. So I think when I started walking, going for these long walks from my house to the school and school to my
Yeah.
house, that's when I started to try and understand myself. Yeah.
When you walk with music on, and this is a personal experience I've had, is that it's like you're putting background music to a visual you see in front of you.
Yeah.
So I used to do this thing when I had first started working for MTV, where when I want to take a break from the edit or from something, I put headphones on, and this is like Parel, Bombay, like literal, like, and I would just walk in a direction with zero like point of where I was walking. And I'd just keep walking, I'd take turns and stuff like that, just listen to music, and I'd keep switching songs, and I had a tendency to listen to background scores.
Yeah.
So I had an entire like, and this is before like this is an MP3 player playlist, right? This is not
Yeah.
streaming playlist. So, and that just would kind of like I could set myself in a mood with a walk with the right music.
Yeah.
It's just that combination of, and suddenly you'd stop and say, okay, where have I reached, and figure a way to go back.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I agree with you. There's something about a walk that just generally puts you into a certain, I won't even say meditative. It just gets you into a certain zone to kind of like reflect.
Yeah, yeah, and the place has a lot to do with it. Like as much as I love this city, this doesn't. It's not a city
To walk in.
to walk in at
You're
all.
looking down to say, where I hope I don't step on some shit, some
Yeah,
pothole.
कुछ
Yeah.
भी कुछ भी. Even if you're not looking down, तुम्हारे आंखों के सामने you'll see some form of violence. You know,
Yeah.
it could be
Yeah.
violence of construction, violence of
Yeah.
traffic, violence of your favorite restaurant shutting down, and you not knowing about it. You know, so there's always some sort of violence that's happening in front of you. So it's not a city for you to like. Let's go for a walk.
Yeah.
Which is why here when I'm walking, I usually wear these noise cancellation earphones. You
Yeah.
know,
Same.
because you're trying to disappear as opposed to engage.
I agree. Do you think it also helps the process of observation? Because when you're walking with noise cancelling on, and I'm just riffing from that point, do you also see that the more you observe things around you, it could just be how people are, how things are. Like, I love the fact that you use violence as a term for construction. It's not a word I would have used for construction, but when you said it, it made total sense. Does it help you in terms of your creative process to also be able to observe things in that sense, or is that, or is it the other way around? It's because you're in that process of, as you're writing something or you're thinking about something, and this kind of helps you balance that out.
Now it's getting more and more difficult to derive pleasure from this. Pleasure from observing the world and using that as a way of using that as energy that can help you in your creative pursuit. Earlier, it was much easier. I remember when I had come to the city at the age of 21, 22, irrespective of whatever time it was, I never thought it was as tiring or as taxing as people make it sound to take a train from Andheri to Fort or Kulaba or wherever, and go for a walk. I thought, to kya ho gaya? It's normal. You can take it. At best, 45 minutes, 1 hour, you'll be there. But now I don't do that. There are many reasons. So my engagement with the world is also decreasing, to be very honest. My engagement with another kind of world is increasing. And I think that's a problem. It's not a good thing. But my engagement with this world increases not when I'm away from Bombay or when I'm in Goa or something. I don't want to say that. But maybe when I'm taken by a surprise a little, you know, and I don't want to be that person who's living to be surprised. Ke dikhao kya tum,
Yeah.
present yourself.
Yeah.
But when there's a bit of unpredictableness, there's a time in your life when you feel a bit like I know what my day would be like. And the moment there's a bit of a surprise, you suddenly tune in, you know. So I think, this engagement, earlier it used to be very, very high. Now, I don't know why it feels a little more difficult.
Do
Yeah.
you feel it's also because as you kind of grow older, you kind of want to, or by almost by default, your world starts getting smaller? Because I know exactly what you mean. I first moved to Bombay, lived in Ghatkopar, would take the train to go to Kolaba every Sunday, just gonna walk around, do that.
Yeah.
Now you can't get me to go like one street away from my house unless I really have to.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, do I really need to?
Yeah.
Forget house, leave the apartment is a whole different thing.
Yeah, I mean, one is that to seek purpose in everything as opposed to seek an experience in everything, you know. So now it needs to be purpose led. That why is this guy calling me? While a scene, you know. Uh, so one is that. The second thing is I think I'm overstimulated, you know. So I don't need more stimulation. I feel even while sitting, I can be so stimulated just by going through the dailiness of life just on my phone. So I think my desire to be stimulated is less, and my desire to slow down is far more.
I'm just speaking from what you said because the tendency to build, to kind of go out and have experiences is not just for you to experience it, but to experience with other people sometimes.
Yeah,
Oftentimes it's about that building of community. You meet people at random places. The surprise I felt always comes from, doesn't always come from the space, but also comes from the people around.
absolutely,
What's happening
absolutely.
there, right? The more we engage and get that rush from, let's say, the phone, do you think that's why we connect less with people now than we did before?
I don't know, man. I connect less with people like myself. Like if I see myself as a person sitting next to me, I'd be
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, isse mat baat karna." I know what is he going to talk about when it comes to politics, his views on Bollywood, and his views on the world politics, everything, you know. So most of the conversations that I end up really enjoying are the ones with people who are not from my field. You know, it may be an architect, maybe someone who works in the food and beverage industry. For me, those conversations are always fascinating because I know very little, but I'm very curious. So I'm the one who's always asking them hundreds of questions. So anyone who is little less like myself is far more interesting, stimulating. Those conversations are far more alive than than my tribe. You know,
And it's almost the anti-algorithm, what you just said, right? The algorithm is
exactly,
feeding you the things that you want to hear and consume.
exactly,
But
exactly.
here, you actually, what you get the most, I wouldn't even use stimulation as the word. I think you get the most satisfaction
Satisfaction.
from having conversations or consuming something, which is, I mean, curiosity is sparked when it's not what you always see, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
What in, I mean, if you go back to even like curiosity, right? Let's go back to when you were a kid, and I feel that's oftentimes when a lot of these things get tapped in. What were you most curious about as a kid?
I was very curious about friendship because we moved from one country to another because of the jobs that my parents had. So, how do people become friends? What kind of a friend am I? And what is the dynamics of the group? One was that. Then second was the opposite gender. Um, and in my quieter moments, I was very curious about history and about literature. You know, but those were not the things that made me feel cool as a being. So I was not the guy who would always be seen with a book, even though it's probably running in my head. But I was very open. Yeah, I mean, like on the surface, I was very curious about like girls, boys, dynamics, friends, football a lot. Very basic stuff. You know, nothing. I bloomed very late. You know, I mean, uh, and thankfully, I feel like I'm a bit of a nerd now, because imagine living your entire life and not ever feeling like a nerd. I feel that's a
Oh my God.
yeah, you know, that feels very strange
Yeah.
because somewhere you need to be lost, you know, and whatever it may be, it could be the fabric of the cushion that I mean, you need that bit of beh gaye, you know. So yeah, so I became a nerd very late in my life. So yeah, I mean, I had very basic thoughts.
When you say, when you, that bhege wala part, no, I feel it comes oftentimes when you're that age, when you are like late teens, early 20s, maybe I would say even teens, not even late teens, teens and early 20s. You're getting into college, um, or I've just like towards the end of college, you're going to start working, and you are almost in this phase of I think the need for experiences, the need to kind of try things out, the need to be curious about everything, but also like have social connections. It's like this
Yeah,
avalanche of things that you want to do and experience.
yeah,
And I don't think it's about, oh, this won't last, but more about what more can I do?
yeah.
Was that period like this as well for you? Because I had a very weird phase in that. I'd love to hear how your that period in life was.
No, for me, it was all about extracting the most from the moment because I knew, I mean, I had a great college life and I knew it's going to be very short lived. So for me, it was always about sleeping less and indulging in friendships, indulging in conversations, indulging in theater, indulging in script writing, acting, whatever it was. But for me, it was, you live 400 days in 365 days. I was very well aware of that. Sometimes in my life I'm very stupid 99% of times, but at 1% of times I'm very smart also. So sometimes I know the future. Like I knew when I was in college that I will have a very this kind of a path
Huh.
in life,
Yeah. Wavy path. Yeah.
Yeah, wavy. So I told myself that moments where you can really, really enjoy and without a sense of worry, you maximize those. So for me, college was that. I remember when I came to Andheri for the first time and I was walking in seven bungalows for the first time. I told a friend of mine, I'll be here for the next decade and a half for sure. She's like, how do you know? And like, I just know it. So it's weird. You feel like there's this weird karmic connections with certain things. So there I knew it.
It's interesting that you have clarity at that point of time because that, I
But
mean,
there's no basis to the clarity, which is the beauty of it. I wish there was. Or no, I don't probably wish because I would have
yeah,
started overthinking and gone
yeah,
crazy.
yeah.
There's no logic. There's no reasoning. It's just a very solid core feeling that I can't detach myself from. And almost that feeling being the truth. Yeah, a truth with, yeah, a louder truth than most.
Because I also asked you that because that phase for me, I would say was the most like what my parents call the dark ages. Because I was in that phase of running away from anything. So you run away from any form of responsibility, run away from the fact that you were failing at stuff, run away from the fact that you were not having good relationships, friendships that are totally wrong for you, but you're still deep into like everything that I could have possibly have done wrong in life happened in that period. So when I look back at that college, at that period of my college life, compared to my postgrad, which is the best period of my thing, was like I think, but like, what were you thinking? Maybe I wasn't thinking. It was like,
Exactly.
can I just experience more and more things?
Exactly,
Was the
exactly.
thing? Yeah,
Yeah. To not think is also a blessing.
yeah.
So in that ways, that the college life was that, na, कि
Yeah.
मतलब,
You used a word when you spoke about this. You said that it can also become very when you dig deeper into something and try to find too much meaning into it. The tendency is to not just become self-indulgent, but to really like overthink it. We're almost at a time where we're trying to figure a framework or a model or something for everything. When you people literally will go and let's say go on YouTube and say this is what I'm feeling. This is what
yeah,
can I put like can I put it in a box? But that is most times not the best thing to do. What's your perspective on just this? I call it almost this overflux of overthinking that everybody seems to have.
yeah. I mean, everyone is always tired at all times. And I mean, for me as a writer, it's scary to be a writer in these times
Mm.
because I, whatever I want to write, there is insane amount of literature on anything that I want to write,
Mm.
be it an idea, be it a theme, be it a character, be it a place, setting, research, right? So there's always so much of information, and there's so much of content already that the question, what will you bring to the table? How will you write it differently? And it obviously it feels like a tsunami that is about to approach you. But then every now and then I read some of my favorite writers, and I always find that whenever they are writing or whenever I'm reading what they've written, there's always a sense of freedom. There is always this sense of uh, being careless because you know your truth. So then you start resetting yourself, which is what they say, that there is no difference between an experienced writer and a writer who's never written, because you always start from zero. So when
So
those
true.
when those moments come to you, it's amazing, because you're like, okay, it's fine. Yeah, you are in this state of, though there's so much, but the reset buttons are there if you're aware of them. At least I feel. Listen, like, I just realized you have a Kurt Cobain journal there. So for me, Nirvana is a reset button. The first two albums of Coldplay are a reset button. Linkin Park, first two, three albums are a reset button. A lot of TV shows are a reset button. So if one should always have those reset options, because otherwise it's too much. Even like for me, KFC is reset. you
So
know,
true.
like,
KFC, but not the normal chicken one. The spicy wings are a reset for me.
yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, because I remember when I used to go for a haircut in Muscat, when my father used to take me. So the thing was, "Ki tu baal katwa le, I will take you to KFC after that." And then KFC became this thing, sort of. There is some sort of, it's more than food. There is something more
Yeah.
to it,
The
and now you can't
significance.
eat it every day. You can't
Yeah.
even eat it once in a month.
Yeah.
So to have those reset buttons, I think definitely helps.
For me, there was actually this particular brand of cigarettes when I used to smoke, and I started smoking in boarding school. I remember there used to be a cigarette called the Gudangaram,
Of course.
which used to take ages to
Yeah.
finish. So I used to be that kid who would jump over the gate and buy biryani for everybody in the dorm and come back at night and risk getting caught, which I eventually did at some point. Not for the biryani, but I got caught for something else. And if you lit one Gudangaram when you ordered it at Imperial in Bangalore, by the time that got over, your biryani order would be ready.
Amazing.
That was my timer. Like it almost became a default for a break at that time. And I think back on that when you were just saying this, like it came back as as a thing because that signified my relationship with cigarettes throughout that period till I found a way to take a break without having a cigarette.
Yeah.
But it's just that we got to find those. I love the concept of the reset button. It's
Yeah, it's important.
as I hear you speak, right, there's this concept called the creative life I was reading about the other day. It's
Okay.
basically there's a way to live your life. And one way to live your life is creative living, which basically signifies that you are not letting fear put you in a certain structure. You are letting creativity and curiosity really drive your life. The more I was reading about that, and it's in this book called Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert, and I found it to be such an interesting way to show creativity not as an output, but as a way to kind of live.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be okay. I haven't written the best book. Writing itself is the process. Is that how it breaks down into your life?
To a large degree, in some places, so for me, coffee is a creative space. It's not about the caffeine kick. It's about that too, but not the main thing. It's not about the act of drinking, but it's also about the act of brewing. It's about the act of reading about it. It's about the act of having a conversation about it. So that becomes a creative space in my life. Coffee, food, that why do you need to sear the chicken for 5 minutes when you put it? And then why do you need to cook it on slow? You read it that ye karna hai, but why to do that, and then you make a small note of it in your notebook. For me, that becomes a creative space. I'm very Delhi wala like that. So for me, most of my stimulation comes from my from, it's from, it's an oral form of stimulation. So for me, it needs that creativeness needs to come. Yeah, that stimulation needs to come, but how that stimulation needs to not take charge of you, but you need to take charge of it. You know, it's very easy for me to get up at 5 in the morning and brew 3 cups and go crazy analyzing them, and just take a sip and then spit it out because you don't want that sort of a kick at that time. But to keep that in check, so this creativity, because it gives so much joy, also needs to be put in some sort of a
Box.
box
Hmm.
and needs to go through these checkpoints.
Hmm.
uh, then it sort of enhances your life as opposed to destroying it in a way. uh, because I'm one of those people amongst so many other who've taken something that I love as my profession. So anyway, I kind of self-destruct in so many ways. So I'm very careful for about the things that I enjoy, that there is some sort of um, I don't want to sound corny here, but there's some sort of a sacredness to that practice,
Hmm.
even if it's about supporting a football club, that there is some sort of a method to that, you know.
You use the word self-destruct, and I was told in therapy about self-sabotage, which seems to have been one of my core issues in general, was that my tendency to overthink, and then literally if I'm in the best moment in life, I will find a way to say no, this is wrong, you shouldn't do this, and pull yourself down when you should actually be this. And it's one of the core things I've actually worked on. And I feel that especially comes to light when it's about any form of human relationship. Like, I feel you self-destruct the most when you're actually, you have a good friendship, you have good human connection, you're in a good relationship, uh, and the tendency is to find a way to screw it up, for lack of a better word. You get asked way too much about relationships and love, but I can't not ask you about relationships and love. But I want to actually ask you about our tendency to not create, not hold on to the connections we actually have, but to really kind of break them down because we somehow can't deal with it just being normal.
Yeah,
Do you agree with that?
for some people, yeah. I mean, I've been in those phases when there's a fight going on. This thing that I'm going to say will destroy the other person,
Oh no, yes,
but
I
you
know.
still say it. But it's a reflection of. I feel it's a reflection. It's something that's more about you than about the other person.
Always.
It's always about that. You're screaming out your own nightmares. Yeah, I know a lot of people who are like that. But more and more, I'm coming to know less of people also who are like that. Maybe it says something about people that I've surrounded myself with. But I think now, because there's so much of conversation about personal mental health,
Hmm.
that I think there's a bit more awareness of uh, love, which is not like Shah Rukh Khan's
Hmm.
character from
Yeah.
Bazigar order.
Yeah.
I think people are taking care of themselves a little bit more than they did earlier.
Hmm.
Sometimes I think they're taking care of themselves way too much,
That's true.
which is a big problem. Uh, yeah,
You know, I agree with the taking care of themselves too much, is that you don't, the tendency to now analyze every
yeah,
action,
it's really dull, man.
trying to figure a way to, oh, this is why I've done this, or
Yeah,
this is. And like I used to tell people I have ADHD for years, till I actually went to, I said, okay, it should not be fraud, go to an actual, and I didn't have ADHD. And I, you hear people saying, oh, this, it's the analysis of it, and it's a problem I struggle with, because now I've gotten so deep into that the last few years, like I try to analyze every single thing. Oh, this is why I did
but that
this.
must be tiring, no?
Yeah. It does get that way, and thankfully, I have people in my life who call me out saying, "Stop." I mean, I have two kinds of people in my life tell me two things: stop making everything into a podcast, stop making everything into something you have to analyze from, like, this is why we're doing it. But I also feel it helps. So I'm trying to find a way to almost give it a middle ground of saying, okay, I want to analyze it because it's helped me, but I also don't want to become like Dr. Sigmund Freud,
Yeah,
whatever that is.
but I think that's where comedy helps. You know, um, like the best comedy shows are the ones which are not frivolous, but which talk about something very deep. But they take it, they say it with so much of levity, and they say it with so much of lightness of touch, that you feel joy in that heaviness. And I think to not have joy when you're living, especially when you're living with this heavy privilege, is a shame. Like there's this show, which is that show, Trailer Park Boys. It's a Canadian show about people right at the bottom of the economic pyramid. And it's about alcoholism, it's about poverty, it's about what do you have when you have nothing. These are really heavy questions, but it's so funny, and it breaks you into a million pieces, but you still laugh. I don't think Indians have that quality anyway. I think we are a little, especially people of इंडियंस तो बहुत ज़्यादा जेनरिक हो जाता है, बट आई डोंट थिंक पीपल दैट आई नो एंड आई एम इंक्लूडिंग माई सेल्फ वी हैव दैट quality of being chilled out.
Hmm.
I don't think we are a very chilled out society.
That's actually true. We're not. Innately, I feel we either take things too seriously or too
Yeah,
lightly. It's like the two extremes, right? Beach ka, it's not there. It's like
yeah,
you can't take it in a normal scenario.
या तो वही पेरेंट्स न्यूज़ देखते हैं और बच्चे मीम्स देखते हैं. यू नो वो कुछ है ही नहीं, वो बीच का जो एक नॉर्मल है जो पेरेंट्स भी देख रहे हैं और बच्चे भी देख रहे हैं वो नहीं है. सो इट्स जस्ट इट्स वेरी वियर्ड मैन. इट्स वेरी वियर्ड.
And that also affects how, and this is actually, I remember a conversation I was having with a couple of us from the team. We were having a catch up, and someone said that, you know, the reason why a lot of the connections don't last when you meet someone, especially you meet them on an app, is that you know what the end result is. So why do you even have to make the effort of getting to know you, having that conversation, building that connection? Because we know what we've both swiped for. Do we need to even like get to know each other? And when you don't do that, you're obviously then you made it a commodity. You know, it's no
Yeah,
longer
yeah, yeah.
it's no longer a connection. It's no longer that. And then at some level, it doesn't matter if you're on the extremes. I mean, I guess that comes in later. And in some ways, the way you even connect with family, the way you connect with friends is like, you know, it's that WhatsApp group or it's that, well, like for me, it's memes. Like we're closest friends all day long. We're
Yeah,
sharing
same.
random stuff on an Instagram group or on a
Sometimes you
WhatsApp group.
forget that you share the same meme with this guy. The
All the
other guy
time.
is like, साले भेज चुका है. Like, अच्छा ये दूसरे वाले को भेजना था.
All the time. And with family, it's always like, oh, like it's like a photo. It's like a good morning, or it's one of those things, right?
Yeah.
We've taken away the conversation that is required to go deeper beyond, and that was always a leveler, and I feel that that leveler has just kind of gone away.
Yeah, because being forced to interact is one of the worst things that has happened to humankind. That why should you know everything about me? Why should you talk to me every day? Why should you ask me about? Because nothing changes in a day, but a lot changes within those quieter moments that I'm not ready to talk about because I'm telling you everything stupid and banal, right? So this idea of being in touch all the time is very it's so dull, man. You can't be in touch with your own self. You feel this weird sort of uh, I don't know what the word in English is, but there's this weird ghin, there is this weird that you're marinating too much in your own thoughts, that sort of irritation that you feel at your own self. But this whole thing of having the access to be in touch all the time is really sick in a way.
And that's almost like driving the human engine now, right? You like all we do all day long, the social media train, the
Yeah.
algorithm life. It's tuned to that, and it's also kind of pushing us to. I don't think it's about presenting the best version of yourself, but you're presenting a version of yourself that you know will be easy to talk about. And when you do show the other side, you're showing it and in a way that it's almost like at some point something's burst and it's an outburst out there, and it's not on that level, it's again on the extreme, on that
Yeah,
sense of
yeah,
the
yeah,
word.
yeah, yeah. And it is too much of this awareness of the self, of in a way which is all optics. It's like that old joke that every time you're eating at a wedding, the camera guy has to focus at you.
Oh my
You
god, that
know,
is the worst.
and you
It's
look at yourself
yeah.
in that lens.
Yeah.
So there's that moment of you seeing yourself eating, and there's a part of you which feels a little grossed out, right? So if you're always aware of yourself, you're not really experiencing anything because you're too much aware. Like animals don't they're not so aware of their being at all times because you go crazy if you're always so aware. And it's good to be aware for few minutes in a day, which is why all great writers and all great philosophers maintained a journal, because you need to take that time out to just align your thoughts. But now journaling has moved on from journaling to writing Instagram posts, commenting, being on Instagram, always being available, changing your TPs on WhatsApp, then changing something on Instagram. So you're not aware, but you are also aware. It's very weird. So this lack of wanting to experience life, which is what I fear, which is what I sort of suffer from also comes from this, because I feel that I'm always aware. I'm always seeing myself in every situation. So kahin na kahin this desire to get lost in the moment is not there as such, because it's difficult to come by.
And you're also like, you're not wanting to know more about someone because you feel like you anyway seen what's going on in their life, you've seen what they've shared.
Yeah,
So it doesn't drive you to be curious about them and what's going on with them. And in that sense, it's also not driving you even for them to be curious about you. And you're also kind of running away from being normal. I feel there's a all of us as people want to live extraordinary lives for perception, but ordinary is where actually a lot of the best moments and
it's always
happiness and
that.
everything.
It's always that.
We always worry about ordinary, right? We don't want to be bored, don't want to be ordinary,
Yeah,
don't want to live a normal life. And normal is not about, I don't think normal is about financial
yeah,
health. It's just literally how you want your day to be. It's the normal stuff that makes it what it is. Do you enjoy normal?
yeah, man. I strive for it, you know. But yeah, all the time, all the time. But and normal only gets enhanced when you also experience something out of normal, you know. But if it's only out of normal and then normal is like weird, yeah,
And normal is also about getting bored, right? Normal, the
yeah.
worry is that normal will make you get bored in life. But actually one of the, like, I enjoy being bored. It is one of those things I want to be bored in life.
But it's very difficult to come by
It's
now.
tough to do.
Yeah, I don't get bored. I used to say it with pride. Now I say it as a burden. That my mind is running so much at all times that it's never asking me, so what's up? It's always like, this is up, that's up.
I've rediscovered getting bored as an enjoyable practice because of my daughter. It's something I started to do with her as a practice, and I've spoken about it a few times. I try to find inanimate things or other things which aren't like. Let me give you an example. Maybe that'll explain it better. Let's say we were two examples. One is, lie in bed, look at the fan, just come up with stuff.
Yeah,
What could that fan be? And after a point, I'm just look at the fan, you get bored. And I remember her as a 3-year-old resisting it. Let's just do this. Let's like lie down on the bed, just look at the fan and see what's going. It's become a carousel. It became something else.
lovely.
And we did that whole play. And we were on holiday. We'd gone to visit my sister in London, and we'd gone to the countryside, and we were in this cottage which had hills behind it, which had an actual bench you could sit on and look at, just like a couple of green hills and a tree. And she and I were sitting on that bench again, and she was now about five, almost five. Like, what can you imagine? And she's immediately said, like, I can imagine like a dragon coming off that hill. And I'm like, it's also boredom drives so much imagination.
It
It is
always does.
insane.
It always does, which is what they say that, even for, sorry, I keep talking about writing, but
No,
from,
but I wanted to talk about
yeah,
writing.
because it's my religion,
Yeah.
so that you sit every day and you bleed, which is what Ernest Hemingway said. Writing is not difficult. All you have to do is sit and bleed. But you sit every day from 9 to 5, whatever the hours that you want to put in, and you are self-conscious. You're afraid. You're scared of the blank page. Then you write one page. Then you or a line, and then you judge yourself XYZ to the point that you're bored. You're really at the depths of your being, and then shit starts coming out that you were like, oh, I have this in me, and maybe this character needs to go there. But through that journey of, call it, boredom slash introspection, which is also a form of boredom, you come across avenues which you were not aware of. But again, modern living stops you from being bored, and stops you from thinking, stops you from spacing out. You can space out, but you got to be on your phone while spacing out. So it's tough. It's very, very tough, and I keep cribbing about it. I feel everywhere that I go कि हाँ phones ने तो मेरा वट लगाया हुआ है. uh, and I have certain rules also about my time, about how I consume stuff on my phone. But it's so intense, this even if you spend 2 minutes on your phone, it's so intense that way the information is put out, that you feel that you can't let go, man. You really can't let go. and I derive not exactly joy, but some sort of an encouragement that, someone like a Louis C.K., when he had his podcast while his new movie was releasing on the Joe Rogan show, all of them are talking about the same shit. So Louis C.K. is like, yeah, I have a laptop which has just Microsoft Word, and that's it. There's no Internet Explorer. There's nothing, and I have a phone which just has Google Maps and Note and WhatsApp. That's it. There's no Instagram, and he's saying himself that because I've lost the battle. Because if you give it to me, I'd be like, oh, I'm swimming in this sea of content.
There's something about what you just said which it's it's also about putting the disciplined structure to it, right? You
Yeah,
said 9 to 5, sit in a room and you have to write. You're almost forcing yourself to say, now you have to, like, don't have an option. You don't have
you
that
don't have an
phone.
option.
You don't have, like, and my problem always is that I'm like literally like next to my desk is like a bunch of books. There's a phone there, there's an iPad, there's a laptop. So literally like it's everything possible is right there in front. And I remember when I sat down to write my book, I used to wake up at 6 a.m. because I'd wake up my daughter for school at 7. And between 6 and 7, I would just like not pick up that phone from the side of my bed and just walk outside and just start writing after making some coffee. And it was like, I don't think I could have written the book if I hadn't done that.
Yeah.
And during periods when I was like, I'm behind my delivery timeline, took like 2 weeks off, and every day from 12 to about 4, 5, I would sit in my room and just literally do that. You need to have discipline and structure to be inspired and bored and everything else. You won't just, it's not one of those like freewheeling, like,
No, it's never that, man. It's never that. And I'm so glad that everyone that I look up to says exactly the same thing. You know, it's almost like how the hell there's so many pyramids all over the world when they're not even connected. There's some truth, as pseudoscience it may sound. So, but every great writer saying that, yeah, you have to sit and you have to write. That's the only way writing gets done. That's the truth. There is no other way. There is no other way. And it's good because therein lies the answer, and it's bad because therein lies the answer. It's one of those things.
and it's also scary, like you said, because you're sitting and you realize that there is no, I feel the internet is an excuse for you to say, oh,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
happened to open an
yeah, yeah.
email and this thing. There is no happen to when you're in that space of just like disconnection. And I feel it also helps you look at the connected parts also better. Like when I'm online now, I enjoy that a lot more because I'm like, one thing, there'll be periods when I can't look at my phone.
Yeah,
But if you feel like when you look at your phone at any point of time, then it's like it's you don't value either. You don't
yeah.
value either thing. I
So
really
you
enjoy my
have
time.
these sort of rules also?
So I do like try to. I will not say 100% because we all have. In a week, there'll be 1 or 2 days for sure. 45 minutes to an hour before I go to bed, and 1 hour after I wake up. Don't touch it. And the morning one is easier because I wake up with two canines waking me up saying, we want a biscuit. So my dogs wake me up saying they want a biscuit. So I have to get up and go do that. And I would realize one of them has peed on some mat. I'll clean up all that stuff. वो होते होते 15 मिनट निकल गया. And so then I'm like, okay, then I do this warm water lime thing. I try to write my journal. I meditate for like about 5 minutes, longest I can do. So do all of that stuff, and then you eventually start getting ready for school, all that stuff. So that 1 hour in the morning is easier. What is the toughest for me is that 1 hour at night, because then it's totally on me. Because everybody else is asleep, it is my choice to say, am I going to watch Netflix? Am I going to scroll through YouTube or Instagram, or am I going to sit with the book or just listen to some music or just like do something that is not a electronic device? That's where I often fall sideways. The morning is very easy. I very rarely not do that 1 hour in the morning, but I very often go sideways on that night part. But it's a great way. You get better sleep. You much more energy in the day, and you also have better ideas. You get that time to really like when you observe the world and people in their reality. You see so much more than if you see them in what they've presented to you online. Like we're doing this in person, last time we did it online, for me, this is a conversation where I feel like I'm seeing more nuances than I ever could on the screen, even though it's literally the same thing. Do you experience that as well?
I do. I mean, for me, one thing that has also started to happen is that every time I'm done with a meeting, and even if you've had a great meeting, as soon as you shut your laptop, you immediately take out your phone. And then after 10 minutes, I'm like, shit, what was that point? Or what did we discuss? What was the meeting about? So it's not just about the moment that you are on your phone, that moment is lost, but the moment before is also lost,
Yeah.
you know. So there needs to be this designated uh, time for that consumption, you know. That absent-minded consumption, like I generally have a problem with the short-term memory. It's I have a terrible short-term memory,
Yeah.
like a really horrible, and I think it's one of the reasons is because of my anxiety. The other reason is because of my phone. um, it's weird. Yeah.
You've spoken about having anxiety in the past as well. Uh, I go through spurts of it often enough. I think we all go through that. Do you have you found a way that really helps you deal with it? Or is it more about constant work in progress?
It's a work in progress, but after having gone through quite a few therapists, I feel I have a very good therapist now. So even if I'm anxious, there is this belief inside me that I will speak about this and I'll feel better. You know, so to have that sort of, not exactly a pillar of strength, but to have that information in my mind is good because I feel less lonely out there. Uh, but this is where shit sounds crazy. Um, and I was talking to her about this. As I'm learning to deal with it better, a part of me also misses it because it's I am 100% more caffeinated when I'm anxious and I'm hyper aware of everything, Why did the door shut like this? Where's the cat? I
Yeah.
haven't seen her,
Yeah.
you know. And in my day to day, I'm not that aware and I feel life is passing by. But the sense of time and the sense of atmosphere that I feel when I have anxiety, or say when I'm on set, you know, that I feel is also a form of living which is not sustainable, but it is a kind of living that I feel is missing in my day to day lullness, So to find that sweet spot of being aware of your entire, of just being aware
Yeah.
and being in the moment, being aware, which I think is the bigger problem now for me. I'm less anxious than I ever was, but I'm also less into it now. That it can is subjective,
Yeah.
but I don't know. It's
Do you also feel you and not being hyper aware and you go to the other tangent can also end up being that you are, I mean, the term used is zoned out. But I also feel it's about you finally letting your mind relax.
but it's not relaxed. That's the thing. It's really relaxed, and I don't even know when it's relaxed, whether it's relaxed because it's tired or because it's actually relaxed. Relaxation is very elusive in that sense. I wish it was in my control in that sense, but it's the path that I've chosen, and I'm
Yeah.
aware of it.
And it's healthier.
It's healthier because to not be on this path is the scarier reality. You know, uh, to keep my mind always running involuntarily is a path that I've chosen. So all I can hope for is that maybe in few years it will only get better, and maybe the this desire to always run to a place like Goa or Himachal and have a beer or have a coffee, even if those moments are not present, that feeling can be inculcated in my present wherever I am. you know that I can derive the joy that I get from cooking, even when I'm not cooking. I can just hope for that. But relaxation is a verb as opposed to something that just आज तो मैं बड़ा relaxed हूँ. It doesn't happen, and I'm not saying it doesn't happen for me. It doesn't happen to a lot of people that I know.
And relaxation is an often abused term, right? Because oftentimes the things we believe we will do to relax are the most hectic things you can do. Let's say I'm relaxing. To relax, I'm going on a holiday, and you have planned this packed itinerary of all the things you're going to do to relax. You're going to travel. You're going to book those tickets. You get on that flight. You're going through that whole thing. You get off there. You're not spending time to just be. You're like ticking off. Okay, you've seen this place. You've gone to this restaurant. You've done this stuff. And you come back and you need a holiday. After a holiday, it's that
Yeah, yeah,
everybody says that, right?
everybody says that.
Because you're not going to a place and just saying, let me just kind of be.
Yeah, yeah,
I always found it's most enjoyable when you're in a city, even like you go to a major city and you're saying, I just want to live like a regular person here who has maybe doesn't do anything in the day. What would they do?
yeah,
Just walk around, just do like that's when you actually relax. But we
yeah,
try to plan our relaxation.
yeah, yeah.
But I've also been told that you need to plan relaxation. So it's this, can you plan relaxation versus, I mean, I can be relaxed at home is what I used to say till I was told that that's just me being cheap, not wanting to go anywhere. But
But I personally think that it's not the fault of anyone, but it's everything has moved on so fast and everything's happened so fast that the mind is slow to catch up. So our side effect when it comes to this whole relationship with our phones, it couldn't have been smoother. It couldn't be a smooth ride. It can't be. It's supposed to be a toxic, horrible, turbulent, a ride full of some really crazy stuff. Like that relationship is not supposed to be stable because there was no sort of gradual progression to that thing. One day you just got up and somebody's like 4G low, and you're
khatam.
and you're khatam, right? It wasn't gradual.
Yeah.
So mind will take time, uh, and we will take time unless until we are till the time we are. I guess all of us are sort of aware of this thing. Okay, yeah, you take it nice, you take it easy, and you will fall, and you won't be disciplined always. But I think that awareness is important because it's not supposed to be so. Yeah, it can't be smooth. It's too intense. It's like falling in love with someone who's a superstar,
Yeah.
and you're like, "Arey, it's not feeling relaxed." It won't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's intense. That would be intense. What is your way of relaxing or taking a pause or anything of that sort?
Reading, and like I said, cooking, coffee, going for a walk. And now I also understand those scenes in hundreds of American movies when the guy comes from work, opens the fridge, tuck करके beer खोलता है. I get that now. I think it's nice to have a beer when you're home, when you feel you've earned it, not when you're like
Just sitting at home and opening
just
it up.
sitting at home. Yeah, having a good meal, uh, having a conversation uh, which is supposed to be frivolous is relaxing also, which doesn't where you're not trying to get something, where you're not trying to extract any experience, where you're not trying to extract is also very it's relaxing. Yeah.
Have you ever had a piece of advice that was given to you that is like stayed with you?
Yeah, man. But I think I heard it wrong because that's what my boss says. So I used to work for this documentary filmmaker called J.D. Verma. So he used to say, till the time you're 25, you have infinite energy. But see what happens after you turn 25. Your energy gets limited, and then all of your battles in life are about how to utilize that limited energy and how to maximize life from that limited energy. That's what he said, but he meant something else. But I'm saying it my version of it. I think that's very true. To you have this limited energy in a day, and what do you make of it? Is the is the is the real challenge.
Yeah, so true, right?
Yeah.
This whole conversation around energy management that I've
Yeah.
heard
Like
is,
you really don't have 24 hours. You have 3.5 hours
yeah,
of
of actual energy.
of actual energy. तुम उस 3.5 घंटे में
क्या करोगे?
क्या करोगे? वो बहुत मुश्किल और वही सवाल है.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if those 3.5 घंटे का, if the first half an hour is something you do which saps your energy,
Yeah,
then you don't have.
you don't have those 3 hours. You'll have that 1 minute ka energy,
It's
which
that
is
first half an hour. For me, it's that first
yeah,
half an hour of what you do,
yeah, yeah,
which is, makes or breaks. Is it going to be 3.5 or 4, 5 hours,
yeah,
or
yeah,
is it going to be
absolutely,
like 10 minutes?
yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
There's a few things we ask towards the end of every episode,
Hmm.
right? Because you mentioned food, what's a dish that uplifts your mood?
Oh, so many, man. But it changes from time to time. But at the moment, I think it's not a dish, but I think when I see a freshly baked bread, because I feel it's very sensory. It's not just bread.
Oh, I get it.
It's the smell, it's the texture, and if it's a good sourdough, you imagine the hundreds of ways it can be used and the millions of permutations coming. Bread is something which I think is
I
great.
couldn't agree more.
Yeah,
That fresh bread, and you know, you have that. There are two kinds of bread for me which do that. One is a fresh pav,
yeah,
like it's that warm bun.
yeah,
That is like one of the best things. And the other one is you get that really perfectly fresh croissant
yeah.
where the
Absolutely.
flakes come off just right. It's not that clumpiness. That clumpiness kills it, but it's that right kind of like
Yeah.
thing coming off. I don't think this is MasterChef in all of us talking, but I think we honestly always enjoyed these things. We just found
Yes,
vocabulary for it
yes,
now.
yes, yes. And it reminds you of so many things. You cross a bakery early in the morning
Yeah.
or in the evening, and the smell of it. It's similar to for people in Delhi crossing a place which preparing their fresh round of tandoori chicken and that smell that comes. So I think a good bread really, really cheers me up. And I don't know the definition of a great bread, but I know a definition of a good bread. So that is nice. And I think these days is just pasta. Yeah.
You know, there is a story I was telling someone yesterday. I was in Bangalore yesterday, and I was talking about my experience living there in like high school and college. And I said there was one way of eating one dish that was for me the unifier in Bangalore. It used to be at 4:35 in the morning or 6 a.m. ish. These idli stalls would open, right? They make that fresh idli. It would be people that come from morning walk waiting for that. Someone's partied all night
Yeah,
long, is
yeah,
in
yeah.
party clothes, is having that same. It's literally a plate of freshly steamed idli with chutney. But the kinds of people waiting there to eat it are so diverse. For me, that was the biggest unifier of all. Like someone's come back from a late night shift from a call center, is standing there as well. And I remember that vividly. I went past one of those. I'm like, I remember it like it was like
It's
yesterday.
similar to the Rama Ashray.
Yeah.
You go to Rama Ashray Sunday morning, you know
Yeah.
what the city did last night.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
amazing. It's fantastic.
And what's a song that you go to, especially when you're like, this is a song I need for this emotion I'm feeling right now, or otherwise, which kind of pushes your mood up?
This song called Reckoner by Radiohead. It's from this album In Rainbows. For me, that song is the last song I'll want to hear before I die. And I don't know what the song means besides that it's about the day of reckoning and what you leave with and your final calculation. हाँ भाई हिसाब बताओ कैसे जिए.
Yeah.
But for me, it's not the thematic of that song. It's just the music of it. It's great.
Thank you so much for doing this, man.
Yeah,
This
man.
has been fun. This has been a
Yeah, it was really nice.
so good
Yeah,
conversation,
good
and
chat.
and
Good
I
chat.
ended on a fact where I feel hungry for idli, bread, and a croissant right now. Perfect for a Friday night.
Oh, today's
Go get
Friday.
some wine and do that.